Hey guys, Zack here, and this is my review of One Punch Man Season 1 Episode 2, The Lone Cyborg. So, in the last episode, shortly before the ending, there was a cyborg named Genos, who is the aforementioned Lone Cyborg. So in the last episode, I forgot to mention this, but in the last episode he was tracking a series of what we don't know, but in that episode, but in this episode is revealed to be a swarm of mosquitoes that are kind of crazed. And then this episode, it starts off with a news report that Saitama is watching of a mosquito swarm that is apparently a new breed that nobody knows about, and that they're headed for City Z, which is where Saitama lives. And Saitama comments on how they're close to City Z. And then they warn that the mosquitoes are on their way, and that anyone who is outside will be completely decimated. As they say that, a lone mosquito shows up, and Saitama tries to crush it to no avail, because Saitama may be the strongest person in pretty much all of anime, period, but even he can't crush a mosquito with a single punch. And as he's dealing with that mosquito, which is a subplot of the entire episode, by the way, well, for the first half at least, a large swarm of mosquitoes appears and swarms on a thief who, despite the warnings all over the loudspeakers throughout City Z, decides, hey, this might be a good opportunity to rob some stores. So I mean, what's a few mosquito bites if I get away with all of this loot? And then he realizes the mistake, because a giant swarm of mosquitoes first knocks his hat off and then swarms him and turns him into a mummified corpse, and then return to a central point, which is revealed to be a monster named Mosquito Girl, created by an organization called the House of Evolution. And she's like, oh, come on, you guys need more blood. I am not nearly strong enough yet. And then she's completely unaware that Genos has been tracking her this whole time, and Genos makes a very accurate assumption that if he defeats her, then the mosquito swarm will disperse, as she's behind the mosquito's erratic behavior. And then it just escalates into this epic fight between her and Genos. She takes off his arm, he rips off her legs, and then she realizes she can't beat him quite yet, so she calls all mosquitoes in the immediate area to drain all the blood they can find and bring it to her. And then there's just a big massive swarm. Meanwhile, Saitama, who's been trying to swat a mosquito in the background, you remember when I told you guys about that? Yeah, he shows up with a can of bug spray and is chasing after the mosquito with it, and it accidentally goes in his mouth, and then he realizes where he is and what's going on, and looks up and sees the giant mosquito swarm, and Genos doesn't know who he is at this point, but he warns Saitama to evacuate the city anyway, because it's a bit of a problem, because there's giant mosquitoes. And then as the mosquitoes are gathered, Genos decides, this would be a good time to destroy them all, and then he just burns every single one of them, knowing full well that there were no humans in the vicinity and that it would be completely fine, except for Saitama, whose clothes burn off, but that's beside the point. He's fine. Saitama is fine afterward. But then it's revealed that the mosquito girl, after collecting a certain amount of blood from the surrounding mosquitoes, no longer needs her underlings, and then pretty much nearly kills Genos, leaving Genos with no option but to use his last-ditch effort of a self-destruct. And he probably would have died there if Saitama hadn't just swatted her into the atmosphere. And Genos is like, you, what is your name? And then they introduce each other, and Genos is like, I must become your disciple. And Saitama kind of just shrugs it off, because he's like, okay, wait, you're serious? Yeah, he doesn't realize how deathly serious Genos is in the moment, and then realizes, oh, well, okay. And then a week passes, and Genos shows up on Saitama's doorstep and lets him in, and Genos tells us his backstory, despite Saitama's behesting, that and tells how his town was attacked by some crazed cyborg that pretty much just destroyed his entire village and left him as the sole survivor. And shortly after meets with Dr. Kusano, who is also hunting the cyborg and agrees to help Genos become stronger by giving him body implants. So he's just a cyborg with a human face. That's really it. But then Saitama just freaks out because he spent like 10 minutes of the episode trying to explain his backstory, and Saitama is just like, shorten the story to 20 minutes or less, you idiot. And so Genos is like, okay, I'll give you the short version. Help me become stronger. And Saitama agrees to help him. Meanwhile, as this is going on, the leader of the House of Evolution, Dr. Genus, is analyzing the footage from Saitama's battle with Mosquito Girl, and at first wonders why he's naked, and that Girl was defeated with a single punch, and he's like, she was a weaker model, a prototype, it's fine. And then he learns that she had consumed a large amount of blood before being swatted, and Dr. Genus is like, okay, we need to study this guy, by force if we have to, and then sends, in no particular order, a Mantis guy whose name I don't remember, Squidman, Slugman, Frogman, Armored Gorilla, and Beast King, and Ground Dragon, the mole. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, I know, but he sends them to go, and the Mantis monster jumps in and doesn't get a chance to introduce himself before having his face punched in by Saitama. He just jumps in, breaks the roof, and Saitama's just upset about his roof being broken, so he's like, you need to pay for that, and then just punches his head off. And then Genos senses two more outside, and Saitama beats him to the punch and flips him into the ground. He's like, you guys need to apologize for my broken roof. And then as Saitama's standing there, Ground Dragon pops out of the ground, grabs him by the ankles, pulls him down into the dirt, and then the main guy, Beast King, shows up and brags about how he's stronger than Saitama and that he'll beat him and that he's going to fight him and just rip out his eyeballs. Saitama's half paying attention because he's in the ground and he's all nice and warm, yet kept nice and cool, and he's starting to fall asleep. And then he just gets up out of the ground and leaves, and fights the Beast King, and briefly fights the Beast King. Beast King goes all out, kills Slugman and Frogman because they're not dead; they were just in the ground. One of the few mysterious beings that have ever survived an encounter with Saitama, by the way. And while they're doing that, Genos tries to help but as he's stopped by Armored Gorilla, who just was there the whole time and nobody noticed, and gets into a fight with Genos, which happens off screen, by the way. And Genos is trying to incapacitate him without killing him because Armored Gorilla is a cyborg gorilla, and pretty much that's Genos' whole deal. So he tries to apprehend him so that he can ask him a few questions. Meanwhile, Saitama has punched the Beast King into oblivion, grabbed his eyeball, and Ground Dragon tries to escape by burrowing into the ground, and Saitama chases him into the ground and you just see his face pop through the dirt, and it's just, found you, and punch it, and just sends Ground Dragon flying with a single punch. And while he's doing all that, Genos has beaten Ground Dragon to a pulp. Not Ground Dragon, Armored Gorilla to a pulp. Armored Gorilla is bleeding, missing both of his arms and legs, and he's like, you will never beat us. We are superior. I am the third most powerful, and Beast King is the second most powerful. You have no chance. And then Saitama shows up with Beast King's eyeball and reveals that he beat the Beast King, and Armored Gorilla just loses his shit, we'll call it. He just freaks out. He just freaks out, goes off the handle, and loses his cyborg voice because he was just trying to sound cool. And Dr. Genus runs in wondering what's happening, and all of his assistants turn around, and they're all him, and that's where the episode ends. And I'm assuming it's going to be a two-parter. Actually, I know it's going to be a two-parter because I've seen all these already. and I'm just rewatching them to refresh myself. Okay, but I like this. It introduces our first major villain that isn't a one-off. I mean, Vaccine Man was cool, but he was a one-off. He kind of died in a single punch. He wasn't a major villain. He's not gonna be a major. He was never a major villain, even though he looks exactly like Piccolo, as I stated in the last video. But it's fine. And Dr. Genus, I might want to add. He looks a little bit like Sakamoto from Haven't You Heard of Sakamoto? Just a little side-by-side comparison here. But it's kind of funny. I like that. I don't know which came first, but that's hilarious. That's kind of hilarious that I noticed that after watching this the first time, watching the entirety of Haven't You Heard of Sakamoto, and then watching this again, and I just noticed that immediately that they look so similar. But anyway, I liked Genos' backstory. The fact that he had his entire family decimated by a cyborg is kind of sad, and I'm hoping he finally gets that closure and finally finally finds the cyborg and defeats him and is successful, and he has a backstory, and then he lives out the rest of his days helping Saitama beat monsters in a single punch. But anyway, what did you guys think of this video? Let me know in the comments, and until next time, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace!